Hello, everybody, and welcome. History in the Making, our very first podcast. I am merely Mike Neighbors. He is my partner, Nick Nugent. Together, we are Neighbors and Nugent. Nick, I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for so long, but please explain to our audience, there are, last time I checked, 1 billion podcasts out there. Why will our podcast be different?
Oh, thanks, Mike. This is going to be fun. I can't wait. I think what's important for us is we're combining industries here. You know, our listeners are going to be sports students who are interested in kind of staying current with what's going on, but also what's possible in the sport field, kind of hopefully, you know, paying attention to some of the speakers that we bring on here, some of the current event kind of stuff. But then also it's for sport professionals. It's for people who want to stay current in the field, want to know what the link is between, you know, higher education and the sport industry. But also we bring in, I think, a good mix of things. We bring in higher education. You know, we write about it. We talk about it. We certainly work in the world of sport. And I think between you and I, we have it all covered. And if we don't have it covered, we'll bring someone on who can certainly cover that part. So we do a lot of stuff, but this is going to be fun.
What's great is you and I get along. We work together here at Florida Southern College. But we all also have friendly disagreements. And, you know, you really appreciate a lot of things about me. I know that, especially my computer skills, right? You love that about me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess if you could say that. I mean, the most horrifying thing I've ever heard of in my life when it comes to tech skills is something I just learned about you, and that you've been, over the last, I'm assuming your entire life, you've been clicking over 2-button clicking for copying and pasting instead of just doing Command V and Command C. I can tell you right now that if I knew that in advance, we probably wouldn't be friends. But I'm stuck with you now. So we're going to get you through this. We're going to figure out how to work through these MacBook issues, and then also maybe talk about some sport now and then, I think.
And I know you, but I don't know everything about your sports interests or music interests. So by the time we do 10 of these, we may not be working together at that point, but we'll have a great podcast either way, Neighbors and Nugent. You know, the great thing about podcasts, I think, is consistency, Nick. You got to have segments that people look forward to. And what we're going to have every podcast, we're going to have the following segments. For starters, kind of an appetizer. We're going to give you something to chew on at the beginning. Then we're going to move, just like a good baseball lineup, to the heart of the order, an issue, an event, a happening that really we're going to discuss at length. And then we're going to finish strong with our final five, not the final four, our final five. This time around, it's going to be on quarterback debates in the NFL. I can't wait to get to that. And finally, you have to have an exclamation point in podcasts. We're going to have our final rant. Let it fly on a subject in the world of sport. Nick, I'm looking forward to all these segments.
Me too. Can't wait. Let's fire it up.
We're going to have guest speakers too. We're not going to have it. We're just kind of introducing you to ourselves in this one. But let's begin with, for starters, we explained why our podcast is different, but let's get to know each other a little bit. We want to introduce you as our audience to who you're going to listen to. And we, of course, invite feedback because we're going to disagree on subjects. We're going to agree on things. We're going to bring in guest speakers, as I mentioned. But, you know, when you look at sports, Nick, this is what I believe in. I'm going to, you know, channel my Crash Davis and Bull Durham. This is what I believe in as a fan of sport. Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Put Charlie Hustle in the Hall of Fame. It's not for perfect people. The all-time hit leader has to be in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt. I've dealt with athletes for a number of years. I'm a professor now, but I'm still a sportscaster. I've been a sportscaster for 30 years. I've covered every sport imaginable, every event imaginable. No doubt hockey players are the best athletes to deal with. And I think there's some reasons for that we'll get into in future podcasts. There has to be a 12-team playoff in college football. Finally, they've come to their senses. How on earth have we not had this for so many years? I tell my students this. You're going to tell your grandkids one day, yeah, there was actually a time where there wasn't a playoff, and then they only had a couple teams, and then 4 teams. It's idiocy. You got to have 12 teams in a playoff. Name, image, and likeness. I'm all for paying college athletes. There has to be a cap. Can we please have some leadership at the NCAA? It's the Wild West. It's crazy. The transfer portal, the NIL. We got to fix this. And finally, fumble touchbacks. When you cross the goal line, you fumble. The other team gets the football. The worst rule in the NFL, hate fumble touchbacks. So Pete Rose, hockey players, 12-team playoff, NIL, and fumble touchbacks. Nick Nugent, that is what I believe in. What do you believe in?
I like it. I'm a little bit annoyed because we went into this blind. I didn't know what you believed in, and now you're going to find out what I did. And we are actually sharing a few of these things, so I'm going to be shocked that we believe in similar things. First of all, I believe that Dez Bryant caught the ball. I'm not even a Cowboys fan, but against the Packers, I believe he caught that ball. I didn't have any money on the game. I don't care who won, but that was one of the most aggravating things I've ever seen, when 99% of the people believe he caught it, and all of a sudden, besides Packer fans, of course, all of a sudden, because you bring it down to the millisecond of the instant replay, he didn't catch the ball. BS. He caught the ball. Second, I believe you should be able to be loud during golf tournaments. The whole idea that in every other sport you can yell as loud as you can. A championship point in basketball, I can be yelling like a maniac for the free throw. But all of a sudden, if a squirrel farts in the woods during a golf tournament, the player will get all out of whack. Unacceptable. You should be able to yell whatever you want within reason, but be nice and loud during golf. And that comes from a golfer. So I think you should be able to be loud. Number three, we share this opinion. NIL deals. I take a little bit further. I believe that NIL is ruining college sports and will very likely ruin high school and even youth sports. I think it was a bad idea in the beginning, and I think it will go down as one of the worst decisions of all time in a long list of bad decisions by the NCAA, but certainly a bad idea. Fourth, I believe that it should be illegal to take a pitcher out of a no-hitter while they're playing. I think that if you're worried about pitch counts or if his arm's going to be okay or not feeling right, combined no-hitters mean nothing to me. If you're pitching a no-hitter, you stay in the game until that hit happens or you end the game. And then five, finally, not only do I believe that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, but I believe that I will never go to Cooperstown until he is in the Hall of Fame. My father and I have a deal where we will not go until he's in. So I absolutely agree. If you're the all-time hit leader and you're not in the Hall of Fame, absolute nonsense. And don't even get me started on people like Todd Helton and Scott Rowland recently getting in. Mike Neighbors, that is what I believe.
I like you even more. Now, you want to tend to not like me as much in this podcast. I think it's good for banter, maybe good for the podcast. Round of applause for the golf take, by the way. Come on, golfers. You got NBA players, you got college football players, the free throw line, people like this behind them. Golfers, you can't take people cheering for you. And I don't know your father. I love your father for that take. I went to Cooperstown with my father when he was still with us, and we had a good time. But you know what? My father would have liked your father too, because he loved Pete Rose. You know what? My father watched Pete Rose play minor league baseball in Tampa for the Tampa Tarpons. Yep. Pete Rose would run to first, and everybody in the field made fun of him. Yeah. Well, who's laughing now?
Exactly right.
Who's laughing now? Pete Rose is not a perfect human being, but he's a hell of a baseball player and should be in the Hall of Fame. So that is what we believe in. That's our for starters. Now we move, speaking of baseball, to the heart of the order. This is an issue we really want to talk about. I don't think we're going to debate this, but the Damar Hamlin game, as we will call it, the Bengals-Bills game a few weeks back, there's so much non-good news in society, bad news, whether it's sport media, whether people don't like the NFL because of the Colin Kaepernick issue. They still haven't come back for that. I used to work in local news for years, and it was hard doing sports because I always felt like, and I still believe this, that most people are good. I really believe that. And I think most athletes are good. But I felt like in local news, we would squeeze the bottom 5% of what happened in that day and act like it's the norm, and that's what's happening everywhere. There's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of good news. And frankly, that's why I bring this up, because every once in a while, you'll get a story where we're not enraged on Twitter, where we're not debating it on social media. And that's just the Damar Hamlin story. I mean, there's so many great layers to it, Nick. How do you feel? I want to break down why I like this story so much. But to me, this is what we can agree on. All the good news, all the great layers of the story.
Yeah, really, really tremendous stuff. I mean, I like everyone else was watching that game, and then it happens. And then, like most things, when something happens and I'm not getting the response that I want right away, I get on Twitter because somebody has a different angle. Yeah. Somebody has a video. Not that I wanted to watch a video if it happened, but somebody's got kind of a current update. And so I immediately jump on, and within probably 5 minutes of it happening, obviously words of support, professional athletes, announcers, media, professors, students, fans, even non-fans, wish the best, hope the best, with nothing negative coming out. But what impressed me the most, obviously, is the GoFundMe. all of a sudden you have a GoFundMe that has a few $1,000s in there, and then within 5 minutes it's got 60,000. Then within 10 minutes it's got 100,000, and then an hour later it's got 1 million, and then 6 hours later it has 5 million. It's just really tremendous. And the best part about it is not the fact that money was raised for a charity, which in itself is great, but the idea that people did it anonymously. In other words, you don't donate $10 to GoFundMe to brag to your friends. You do it because you want to be part of something bigger than you. And when something like that happens, people look for a reason to gather the troops. And I think in this case, the only thing that they could do that they could have control over, other than throwing some prayers into the air, was giving some money. And if you look at that donations list, of course you had some really big donations, but man, if you scroll, you get $5, $10, $10, $5, and people are just jumping on there and taking part. It was a wonderful moment of fans and players and announcers alike that were coming together for a very sad situation, but not only a sad situation, but hoping that it would get better. In other words, they were horrified at what happened. They were scared. But all of them, everybody wanted the best outcome. And luckily, we got the best outcome.
You mentioned anonymous contributors to this. I think it's amazing. $8.6 million. $8.6 million has been raised. And the highest contributor was a Staten Island-based electrical corporation.
Yep.
And they tried to get comment from this corporation, and they didn't want to comment, which goes back to the greatness of this story.
Yeah.
Is everybody want to contribute? And in this day and age where it's look at me on social media, not many people want to take credit for it. They really didn't. But of course, Damar Hamlin wears number 3. The contribution from the Staten Island Electrical Company, $33,333.
Fantastic.
That's the highest so far, 8.6 million. And you know what? What makes a story is not only the fact that he's okay, he's alive, and we'll see if he can maybe even play again one day, which will be fascinating to watch. But the main thing is he's okay.
Yep.
But he was the right man for this story because he contributed back to society as a player. And because the GoFundMe has acquired all this money, Damar Hamlin has expanded the base. Now he wants to raise money for the trauma center in Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
He wants to give more to the kids. He's made T-shirts. Did we win? A playoff, his first question to his teammates when he was back to life. Did we win? That's the first thing he wanted to know. Damar Hamlin, Nick, was the right guy at the right time for a perfect story that, frankly, a lot of us needed once we found out he was okay.
I think you're right. I think when you say a lot of us needed, I think that's exactly what happened. I mean, people didn't create a GoFundMe for him. They contributed to a GoFundMe that he started. So this guy, this guy had some issues that he wanted to help fix, and he did it through a GoFundMe, and it exploded because he's the kind of guy when people did a little bit of research, they realized, I like him. I like what he has to say. I like his attitude. He plays hard. He's good on social media. He's not some scumbag. And when people can really rally around a good person, amazing things happen. And certainly, like you said, it's the perfect story, but it's also the perfect storm. I mean, it's one of those things where it happened during a big game. It happened during prime time. It happened when people were watching this game and following him and following Twitter, jumping on Facebook. And certainly Twitter took the lead right away. But immediately after that, Facebook jumped on it. TikTok jumped on it. Then you have news channels jumping on it. And it's just a matter of, like I said, a perfect story, a perfect storm. Great situation and the best possible outcome, which means that he lived and hopefully good things will happen. When you can rally around a moment like that, it really is. It's a testament to the good people out there. Obviously, there are some bad people out there, but people want to hear good stories. People aren't looking for bad stories; they're looking for good stories, and this was a great story.
And what I like about this story, every layer of the story was good. I mean, let's face it, the NFL has received a lot of criticism for many things, especially since Roger Goodell has been the commissioner. One thing I applaud them, and I'm not a big Roger Goodell fan by any means, is the way they conducted themselves during the pandemic. And I thought the NBA may have done the best job immediately going to the bubble, making sure the players were safe, obviously, making sure they didn't miss many games, and they had a good season moving forward. But the NFL, it was business as usual the whole time. They had the combine, they had the draft, they kind of scaled back on off-season workouts a little bit, but amazingly didn't miss any games, or if they had a problem, they would move them a little bit. But they knew that football wasn't the priority on this night, Nick. And I think that sent a big message to a lot of people. But I also credit the coaches on both sidelines for coming together. Yeah. And I'll get to the media in just a second because there are many layers to this story. But the fact that the coaches had the presence of mind to come together, the players were huddled up together, and the league, it took a little while, but they knew that they couldn't play that game and then didn't replay that game. It was good to see the priorities were in order because you can't always say that about the NFL.
Absolutely right. And people like to say it was an impossible situation. That's not true. It was a possible situation. It was just a difficult situation. And I think they made the right choice. The problem is no matter what you decide to do, play the game now, wait an hour, wait a day, don't play it at all, figure it out during the championship round. People are going to be upset. And people like to bash the NFL, whether it's Goodell. Goodell has done good things and bad things. NFL has had, good strategies and bad strategies. I think this was the good strategy. I think it was done correctly. I think that they were able to find humanity in a moment that was pretty scary. And I think they were able to make a strategic decision that made sense. And so while I'll be the first one to pick out what I don't like about something, I would have done the exact same thing. And I'm honestly proud of the NFL for making a decision that can not make light of a very difficult situation, but adopt it and kind of move past it in the right way.
And here's a pet peeve I have in society and really on social media is I saw a lot of media members and some fans say this, boy, I wonder what Roger Goodell is going to do because I have no idea what he's going to do. I don't want to be the person to make that decision. But when they oftentimes people question leadership and they say things like that and a leader makes a decision, once the decision is made, then they second guess it. Yeah. That's when I have a problem. My main problem with a lot of people who criticize leaders, especially sport leaders, is why don't you come up with something? And if you're going to just criticize, don't do that. Come up with a better solution. Come up with a better alternative. Don't just sit on the sideline and criticize. And I know it wasn't perfect what happened, possibly flipping a coin, possibly with a neutral site. But, Nick, I'm not sure what the NFL could have done. You had to cancel that game. You couldn't replay the game. Yeah. I applaud them. I think they did the best they could.
Completely agree. It's, you're going to have people that are angry about certain things. You get a lot of complaints, but not a lot of suggestions. And it's tough to make a decision that quickly. I got to be honest. The easy thing would have been for them to play the game. The easy thing would have been for them to go back to the locker rooms, take 30 minutes and come back and play because everyone's already there. People are already in the stands. People are cheering. People want to watch football. But they made a difficult decision, and I think the strategic one, and I think the correct one. Completely agree.
The last layer of this story, and every layer is great. It really is, and you can't say that. And I think this is what the society needs is to rally around something where we disagree politically and, a lot of different issues in this country, in this world. But the media is often criticized. I get a kick out of Al Michaels was criticized recently for having a lack of energy when he called the Jaguars-Chargers game. If Al Michaels didn't have Twitter when he called the Miracle on Ice or when he called the great World Series earthquake, how he handled the moment, now on Twitter, everybody's an expert, everybody's a critic. And I'm not saying you shouldn't criticize, but it doesn't matter what you do, you're criticized. But I didn't see much criticism of the media for this story. The media is out there, they're not getting new information, and all of a sudden they have to kill a lot of time out there. They have to stretch and stretch and stretch. I thought Joe Buck and Troy Aikman did a great job. I thought Susie Colbert and Booger McFarland and Adam Schefter in the studio all did a great job. And I'm telling you, I've been in a different yet similar situation, and you don't have information coming in, and you have all these experts on social media analyzing every word. I didn't see criticism. I saw a lot of praise for how the media handled this too.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I think the key element here was they acted like human beings. I think a lot of times, and certainly you're on a different platform and experience level with media. And you and I will probably argue about that in podcasts in the future. But I think this is an example of them stepping back and saying, all right, I'm not an announcer for Fox or an announcer for CBS Sports. I'm a human being. What would a human being do? And they said the things that they should be saying as human beings. So it was a pleasure to be a part of. It was a feel-good moment and a very scary moment. And I think that the media handled it like humans, which is not always the case. And you're right. When you start criticizing announcers for being a little bit quiet or talking too much or talking too loud or too many personal comments or not enough personal comments or leaning towards one team, leaning towards the other. Twitter is the best and the worst when it comes to that stuff. And I'm a little bit jealous of announcers that didn't have to deal with Twitter in years past. But the ones that handled it on that day, they did it the right way. And I think all around it was a wonderful moment.
Absolutely. Okay, let's keep going because we have to keep your attention. We know you don't have all the time in the world, but you're going to enjoy this next segment. It's our final five. And sometimes we'll go all over the sports map, but it's the NFL playoffs. We're getting closer and closer to the Super Bowl. Our final five, Nick, and this is our first one. I'm going to zero in on quarterbacks. I'm going to, you've seen this before. And Justin Thomas, our esteemed producer who puts all this together, he's our MVP. He may be the tiebreaker because so far we've been too cordial. We're getting along too well right now. We're agreeing on an awful lot. But I get the feeling we're going to disagree in this segment. It's all about the quarterbacks. High five, number one question. I love Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy represents everything I love about sports because, frankly, when you're a journalist, when you're a sportscaster, you're supposed to be objective. You're not supposed to root for teams. You root for great stories. And is there a better story than Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy? I think 261 players were drafted before they called his name. He steps in December. In December, we haven't known Brock Purdy for a long time, but he is amazingly 7-0 as a starter. He's won 8 because he came in for Garoppolo. Yep. Number one in our final five. Is Brock Purdy a flash in the pan, or do you think he's the real deal, Nick Nugent?
I think he is a flash in the pan for this season. I'm sorry, change it. He's the real deal for this season. He's a flash in the pan. He's playing so far above his head right now, he's drowning. But I will say that he is fantastic. First of all, he's got a fantastic name. You have a name like Brock Purdy, you got to do great things in life. Mr. Irrelevant is just lining up to be the story of the ages for sure. Also, the tremendous pressure to play for an organization like that, especially in the playoffs, and then do it well. If you watch him in the pocket, he's calm. He's got a calming presence. He doesn't panic. It seems like he's smiling all the time. He might be either drunk or just out of his mind. But I'll tell you one thing. He's fun to watch. He's exciting. But most of all, what impresses me, he's got that calming presence in the pocket, which is great to have during the year, but more important to have during the playoffs. I think he's the real deal. Fantastic.
I think he's the real deal too. And I'm not a big buy a jersey of a player guy at all, but I saw this online. A Mr. Irrelevant jersey. I got to have that in my office. That's going to be a part of this office down the road. I definitely think he's the real deal for a number of reasons. I like the fact you can't teach calmness and poise. And I love looking at the NFL draft experts, and I'm a big Mel Kiper fan. I know people criticize him, but he puts himself out there, and I appreciate people who put themselves out there and admit when they're wrong, and he's done that. But he's been right a lot too. But obviously he missed on Brock Purdy. Everybody missed on Brock Purdy. But what I like is I looked at the NFL scouting evaluation of Brock Purdy, not the big arm, not the ideal size, maybe can't see over the line in the pocket. But then one of the major criticisms was confidence.
Yeah.
NFL, you got to watch how you measure confidence. You're going to measure it, how they act at the combine over a couple interviews. You can't really see that until you're thrown in the fire. He obviously has confidence, and I'm just a big Brock Purdy guy, so we agree on that one. Let's go to number two. Okay, if you're a general manager in the NFL and you can move forward with one of these quarterbacks, same hair, about the same age, you go Justin Herbert or you go Trevor Lawrence. Wow.
I go Justin Herbert. I think I go Justin Herbert. That's a tough one. I don't think you make a bad choice here. I think it just comes down to personality. I think it comes down to a gut feeling. I think they're both great, but I'm a Herbert guy for sure.
Man, I hate to agree with you. I think Trevor Lawrence is special, but I think Justin Herbert's main problem is he plays for the Chargers. I think you give him a better coach. I think he thrives. He has the kind of accuracy and arm strength, that combination you don't see in a lot of quarterbacks. You see it with Josh Allen. I think he's more accurate than Josh Allen. Josh Allen may have the biggest arm, but I think if you weigh arm talent and accuracy, I'll take Justin Herbert, even though Trevor Lawrence, I have a lot of friends in Jacksonville. I used to work in Jacksonville. Boy, he's given that market something they haven't had in a long time, somebody to cheer for. That's for sure. All right. Yep. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, the older echelon of elite quarterbacks. If you could have one of those guys as your starter and you weigh in all the components of both of them, they're quirky in different ways, and you're a GM, you want Tom Brady, you want Aaron Rodgers.
So you want him for next year. Is that what you're saying? We're trying to pick between the two?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think you got to look at a couple things. First of all, last year, almost identical in many ways. Both 8-9, both 5-4 at home, both 3-5 away. Similar numbers, similar touchdown interceptions. Brady had more yards, but yards really don't mean too much unless you're not winning the games. I think you actually go with Rodgers. I'm a former New England Patriots fan. I certainly am a big fan of Brady, but I think he's lost his mind. I think, and I don't say that in a funny or comical way. I think he really is not in the game anymore. He seems to get frustrated more than ever. Yeah. He's making weird decisions, passing the ball. Usually he's, king of those check down moments, to a tight end. I think that without Gronk, he's a little bit lost. Yeah. And I think without a receiving core that he trusts to the death, he's just not as effective as he always has been. I think Rodgers is more of a gamer. I think that he's still got some gas in the tank. And while I'd take certainly Brady over Rodgers all time, I think if I'm trying to lead a team into next season, I'm taking Rodgers. We
didn't have a pre-show meeting, which we want this to be organic. We want this to be raw. When I hear your opinion, when I hear what you believe in at the beginning, when I hear about the quarterbacks. But Nick, I got to agree with you. And I'll say it for this reason. Aaron Rodgers, you can make an argument in terms of skill. He has the most skill of any quarterback in NFL history. Tom Brady's the biggest winner in NFL history, but we saw the limitations. I mean, it's okay, Tom, you're 45 years old. I don't blame you for throwing the ball in the dirt when anybody is in your area code, and he didn't have Gronk this year. And boy, Gronk made that Bucs offensive line so much better. Gronk is not underrated, but I don't think people fully appreciate how great Rob Gronkowski is for so many reasons, not only the playmaking ability, but he helped Brady for so many years. The one similarity in these two quarterbacks, though, is they make everybody around them so much better. I know Tom Brady had Gronk and he had Randy Moss, but boy, he made Wes Welker and Edelman just elite players. He really did. And look at the receivers that Aaron Rodgers had for so many years. And you look at other franchises where they have more talent. That is the greatness of Rodgers and Brady. But I think Rodgers, given the situation, I know he's quirky and he always has drama in the offseason, but you put him in the right situation, and I think Rodgers still has a lot of football left in him, so I'll take Aaron Rodgers as well. All right, two more in our final five with the quarterback theme.
Okay.
Nick, I have to ask you, Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins, are they the same quarterback?
Absolutely not. As much as I would love to bash Kirk Cousins because of one of our mutual colleagues, he gets it done. He's a player. He's a gamer. He does it all the time. I think Dak Prescott is just not a great quarterback. I think when you're looking at top tier quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins is reaching the top and close to the top, not quite there in terms of the top 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks in the league. I just think Dak Prescott, while seems like a wonderful human being, is a bottom level quarterback. Very little. I think you just do the eye test. I think throughout the game when you're watching, very few times am I ever saying, "Wow, I can't believe he did that." And usually that's a decent test to ask with some of the great ones. Kirk Cousins pulls some games out of his and certainly Brady and the greats have done that for sure. Very rarely am I looking at Dak Prescott going, "Man, I can't believe he did that." That's a pretty easy one for me.
I'm going to agree and disagree, but when you say Dak Prescott, bottom level, so you wouldn't put Dak Prescott in like your top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL?
Absolutely not. No way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we disagree on that. I think he's in the top 15, but I do think he's not as good as Cousins for these reasons. You put Cousins on the Dallas Cowboys, I think they possibly win that game against the 49ers, because here's the thing about Cousins. He may not be the leader of a comeback like a Tom Brady. He may not have the skill of an Aaron Rodgers, but what he does do, he often doesn't make that big mistake. The criticism on Cousins is he may check down and not make that big play. There's a difference. There's a difference in not making the mistake and not making the big play. I think the parallel is their postseason success. And I've covered the New Orleans Saints for many years. I saw Kirk Cousins come in and break the heart of Saints fans, get his first playoff win. The difference, though, I think Dak Prescott has had much more talent around him than Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think let's put it this way. I think Dak Prescott would be a fantastic backup quarterback in the NFL.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Well, we kind of agree and disagree there. All right, big finish in our final five. Best quarterback of all time. Many say Tom Brady. Many say Joe Montana. We're going to take them off the board. You take those guys off the board, Nick Nugent, who is your best NFL quarterback ever?
Well, if you take those off the board, I'm going with Peyton Manning. I grew up to despise Peyton Manning for many reasons, but most specifically because he was the anti-Brady. But if you just look at stats, I'm a stats guy. I mean, we're looking at we got 2-time Super Bowl champs with 2 different teams. We got 5-time NFL MVP, which is just unbelievable. 5-time MVP. We got 14 Pro Bowls. And I tell you what, in almost every sport, I don't care if it's football, basketball, hockey, baseball, if you are the first pick of the draft and you end up being one of the greats, that's one of the hardest things to do in all of sports. And I'm not saying it's not hard to be one of the greats in general, but if you are predicted to be one of the greats and you can follow through on that promise, you automatically get jumped up into my level. I think he's certainly up there in the top 5. And I would make the argument of number 3 behind the 2 you mentioned. Also, the X factor of having one of the greatest SNL Saturday Night Live skits of all time has to give you just the edge above number 4.
All right, you're wavering off the road. You're running off the road, my friend. Like Pete Rose, we don't judge him off the field. I'm not judging Peyton Manning off the field because I love Peyton Manning off the field. If I was judging him off the field, he would be number 1 for me. Justin Thomas, we're going to have to bring you in as a tiebreaker because Peyton Manning is not number 3 for me. It's certainly John Elway. I don't care about MVPs. I don't care about Pro Bowls that everybody makes. I'm not a huge numbers guy. That's where we're going to disagree, Nick. But I care about winning, and I care about guys who make big plays. When I think of John Elway, he took some horrible Broncos teams, horrible, to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I know at the end of his career he needed Terrell Davis, but he still got it done, and he won a couple Super Bowls. And unlike Peyton Manning, he took bad Broncos teams to the postseason and won. Peyton Manning, they took Peyton Manning to the Super Bowl and still won with him despite maybe having the skills of a Nick Nugent in that Super Bowl. I love Peyton Manning as an entertainer. I don't think he has that clutch quality that a John Elway has. He's not as well-rounded. John Elway could run with the football. He could pass. I will certainly take John Elway at number 3. And I think, it's got to be Brady in Montana, but I think, boy, Elway is a cinch there for number 3. Nick and I disagree. Justin Thomas, who is your number 3 quarterback of all time?
I think I'm going to go with Nick on this one.
Oh,
I think Peyton Manning. I don't know if there's a better QB mind than Peyton Manning in all of NFL. He knew the game so well in and out. And you said some things that I think actually shows why Peyton Manning was better. I mean, John Elway, yeah, he had it with the legs. He could throw it. Peyton Manning, really, I mean, he was the worst when it came to running. So he had to rely on his arm and he had to rely on his mind. I just think Peyton Manning is 3rd, but I do think Elway is definitely top 5.
All right, Nick, let me ask you this before we get to our final rant, okay? Because I want to rant right now, both of you guys. You have the ball with 2 minutes left. You want Peyton Manning over John Elway? When I saw Peyton Manning throw the interception to Tracy Porter in the Super Bowl, when he won a Super Bowl with the Colts, didn't have an outstanding game. I know he was MVP, but the defense played well in that game. I love Peyton Manning. He innovated the quarterback position, the way he would change the play calls and all the records he set. But I would rather have even Drew Brees in a clutch moment over Peyton Manning, despite all the records, despite all the MVPs. The clutch gene is huge for me in this argument.
Drew Brees. I mean, why are we talking about a quarterback who's not even in the top 25 of all time?
Oh,
I mean, it's just crazy talk. Heavy kidding on that one for sure. Just trying to get you riled up. No, absolutely. I'm taking Peyton Manning all day long. 2 minutes left, less than 2 minutes, 1 throw left. I think you're right. He's got the football mind. He knows what to do, where to do it. He knows the right play, knows the right pass. He's the sheriff, man. He gets it done.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll move past all this. Thanks for ganging up on me, Justin. I appreciate that. Our last segment, the final rant. I think some animosity is built up between Nick and I, but this may not be, he's mad at me. You don't even have to be mad about anything, but you want to get something off your chest. We're going to end every podcast this way. Nick, what do you want to get off your chest? The floor is yours. I'll give you the first go at this.
Very simply. And to be honest, it's always going to come back to this. Nobody on the planet hates referees and officials more than I do. I am looking forward to the day when there are no umpires on a baseball field. I think that there's no need for them in a baseball game at all. Certainly there are some sports where you probably have to have someone there to do some things like dropping the puck and maybe kind of organizing some arguments and stuff like that. But in reality, I'm a huge umpire hater. It reminds me of someone who was a hall monitor in school, just a big tattletale. And and when umpires show up the player, especially when they throw a manager or a player out of a game and they really seem to enjoy it. Nothing aggravates me more. I'm a proponent of less umpires and forcing them to have interviews, press conferences after the game where they are forced to answer why they miss particular calls. Nobody is a bigger official hater than I am. That goes all the way down to when I coach hockey right now. I have a couple of games this weekend. I always take it to the line with the officials before I get thrown out of the game, only because I know how awful human beings they are. Terrible.
I'm going to make the segue because officials in any sport should never be the story. We shouldn't know their names. We shouldn't know anything about them. I love the press conference idea, but the same comes to reporters. Reporters shouldn't be the story. And I mentioned this early on. As a sportscaster for many years and still currently one, I feel I root for the story, not win or lose, who wins this game, who loses this game. I want a good story. And you know what a great story is? Sean Payton's going to take an NFL head coaching job probably soon, unless he's just not happy with any of these offers. Mm-hmm. Please, Sean Payton, if you're listening, please take a job with the Carolina Panthers, because that would set up a myriad of great stories. Because not only that, Sean Payton, I want you to take the Carolina job. I want you to bring Tom Brady with you, because I know for a fact if Drew Brees would have retired, Nick's favorite quarterback, back in 2019, Tom Brady would have played for the New Orleans Saints before he came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know the story last offseason that Sean Payton and Tom Brady tried to merge with the Miami Dolphins. Guys, come together. Two huge offseason stories. Play for the Carolina Panthers, because think about this, Nick. If that happens, you have Tom Brady and Sean Payton playing twice against the Bucs and twice against the Saints.
Yeah.
I want a good story. I want drama. Sean Payton, please make it happen. I know you and Brady get along. I love a good story, and that is my final rant. Well, listen, I feel like we've been doing this for years, my friend. Our first Neighbors Nugent podcast. You know what we're all about. Those are the segments we will have every podcast. You can look forward to it. And also, we're going to bring in some great guests as well. So for Nick Nugent, our esteemed producer, Justin Thomas, I am merely Mike Neighbors. That is the first rendition of Neighbors and Nugent. We hope to have you join us next time.